Hey everyone! I knew you were going to do that. How are we all today? Happy time zone. We are back, baby. We are back with Therosian Odyssey, this time with Season 3, Isles of Uncertainty. And we have been super excited to prepare and to play this game again. It is one very near and dear to my heart, the hearts of the players. We've missed it so much, like super missed it. To give you a little context, in case you are new to the channel and new to this particular game, I ran 2 seasons of Therosian Odyssey as a limited series over on the channel Girls Run These Worlds over the course of the past couple of years. And it's been a few years now. We had season 1 and season 2. So season 1 was Strands of Fate, season 2 was Tides of Volition. And we had a ton of fun playing in that setting, which is at its foundation the Theros of Magic the Gathering fame. But I have sort of built upon it to create my own version, heavily inspired by the myths, magics, monsters, and meddling deities of ancient Greek civilization and legends and stories. And we decided that format of a limited series, sort of like 8 to 10 episodes per run, didn't really suit the style of the game that we wanted to play and the sort of sprawling, epic Odyssey style story that we wanted to create. So we've now moved over the game to my own channel here, the Lore Mistress, and we'll be playing every other Sunday. So it will be fortnightly that we'll be playing in a long-standing campaign, and we will have arcs, but they will be much longer arcs than just sort of that 10 episode format that we had. At the end of season 2, our players were each pulled into a dream by Clothis, a goddess of destiny and great weaver of fate, who began to shine a light on the reasons they had been pulled together as a party in the first place. Coming into season 3, we wanted to make sure that such an important dream was given sort of all the focus and the attention that it deserved. So for the first part of our coming back, each of my lovely players will have a solo session in which we will reacquaint ourselves with the character, touch a little upon some of their backstory, maybe throw in a little hints to it here and there, and give them sort of the attention that they deserve. I'm not calling it a retcon, more like an expansion, I guess, of some of what we saw back at the final episode of season 2. So, without further ado, let us introduce ourselves. I'm Kat, she, her pronouns. I'm also known on the internet, bandied around as the Lore Mistress. And I will be the dungeon mistress of this game. Don't take that. And Jen, let's hear about you. I would like to know your pronouns as well. And let's hear a little bit about, I want to know about Estrella, who we will be focusing on today. Let's remind everyone what Estrella looks like, a little bit about her, the class, the everything that we're at with Estrella so far.
I can do that. Well, hi everyone. I am Jen. My pronouns are she, they. Estrella, whose pronouns are she, her. She looks like that. I don't know what you were expecting.
I'm so bad at this. And you were like, and I was like, she looks like what? And then I realized, but yes, just as well for sort of accessibility needs, could you please describe Estrella's?
Good point. Yes. So Estrella is a relatively pale, half-elven wizard. Long black hair, usually worn in. Once again, Jen made a hot PC. Long black hair, usually worn partly loose with a braided headband of sorts, just to keep the more annoying bits back. With a dark purple dress with silver lining, same with arm bracers and boots. No sleeves because sleeves are bullshit. I have been saying this for so long.
I feel like this is the thing that I expect from any Gen character.
Yes.
Sleeves are bullshit, no sleeves.
Sleeves are in fact bullshit, no sleeves. I don't care if it is the middle of the winter, sleeves are bullshit. She is an Order of Scribes wizard that specializes primarily in combat magic, lightning based. Secondarily in utility slash what's the word? Mostly just utility magic. Very calm on the surface, hot-tempered under the surface, except in very certain cases with people she is extra comfortable with.
Extra sassy with, you mean?
Extra sassy with. Sassy, comfortable, same thing. But yes, that is Estrella, my friendly local half-elven Durkle wizard.
Durkle wizard.
I still
Durkle,
can't believe.
by the way, is now, as of season 1, episode 1, is an official part of the Therosian vocabulary. It is sort of an amalgamation of the word dark and purple.
It's a portmanteau.
Portmanteau, which was an accidental one from you.
It was. I was so tired. It was 7 in the morning. It was 7 in the morning. I was very tired.
You were just like, that Durkle dress, dark purple, and then it just stuck. So, Durkle is officially within the game's world now.
It is in the lexicon now.
As a word.
I
do
really
still
tragic.
feel foolish saying it though.
Could be worse. Could be Specs.
Well, thank you. I'm not approving Specs. I am absolutely not approving Specs.
Is it not certificate?
For those of you that want to find out what that is, go back and watch season 1 and season 2 of Therosian Odyssey, and specifically season 1 is where that word came up, and you will find out. And yes, it is kind of as vile as it sounds. All right. Well, just before we get going, I'm just going to do a little safety piece. So Theros is rooted in ancient Greece and fantasy tropes. You will probably find some of the things that you usually find within games and media of that nature. I will not be including discrimination or hate speech of any kind that is related to misogyny or transphobia, homophobia, racism, or sort of with an ableist lens within the game. But things like difficult family relationships, death, power dynamics, wealth divide, for example, they may still be prevalent. So if at any point during the game you feel like we're touching on a topic that is beginning to make you feel a bit uncomfortable, then thank you so much for your support. I would please ask that you remove yourself and protect your headspace. But that's just a sort of little forewarning. And with that said, how are you feeling, Jen? How are you feeling? You ready?
Well, I'm feeling that I forgot to mention that Estrella does have a scar over her right eye, but other than that, I'm feeling pretty good.
That is quite an important one. Yeah, Estrella does have a scar over her right eye, so quite a prevalent scar.
Everything's fine. I'm awake.
Everything's great. No, please tell us more about sleeves of bullshit.
Sleeves are bullshit. I have cut the sleeves off of this shirt that I am wearing.
I am the exact opposite of you, because I feel the cold so easily, so I'm like sleeves on everything. And I find it really difficult to wear things without sleeves. I feel too exposed. So we're like very opposite in that.
Love it.
As people.
Love it.
So I would feel offended that you think that sleeves are bullshit, but I don't. I guess I just don't care for your opinion on them. Oh
damn.
All right. So with that then, should we get started then?
Nah, I don't feel like it.
Okay. Stream's over, everyone.
Let's do it.
Thanks for joining us. Okay, so evening draws in, and the sun sets low over the glittering Siren Sea as another day at sea draws to an end. Your time out on your voyage to the Dakra Isles has been challenging, Estrella. Certainly the journey has lived up to your expectations in many ways, as it has been wrought with both dangers and curiosities alike. So far, the Durkle Wave Runner has survived an attack from Sahuagin raiders, played host to a lost prince of a long-forgotten civilization, and fended off the onslaught from the wild phoenix Kahara, a creature composed entirely of lightning and territorial rage. You cannot help but feel, however, that this is just the beginning of your trials out here at sea. So let's talk a little bit about how an evening for Estrella aboard a ship in the middle of the ocean may look. And to provide a little context, if my understanding and my memory serves me correctly, and I'd love to say copious notes, but I did have to go and rewatch some things a number of times. Estrella has been focusing hard on trying to figure out, with a bit of help from Cascade and Callista. Cascade is the captain of the ship, and Callista is your fellow party member. How to chart a course through the Dakra Isles, because the Dakra Isles are known for these strange mists that sort of seem to rise up and engulf, and then when they settle down again, everything looks a bit different. The islands seem to have moved around, and Cascade is on a journey herself in trying to figure all that out. And how do we chart this? She's created this very complex map that has like moving parts to it in an attempt to make sense of the Dakra Isles. And you have been trying to help her do that, and Callista has also been doing a little helping with that. A recent argument, however, did take place on what to do with the egg that Kahara the Phoenix left behind. And it did lead to a little bit of tension between the party and Cascade. If I remember correctly, Eva slightly put her foot in her mouth and just all out insulted the entire crew, which was just fantastic. My favorite thing, one of my many favorite things that Eva has done. But it did leave a little bit of a sour taste, I think. So there has been that sort of tension, a little bit of an altercation with Cascade. Estrella has also been trying to make some progress in getting to know Suri, who is the youngest member of the crew, and also probably the rudest. And and has a connection, or seems to have a connection with the criminal gang from Miletus known as the Piranhas, which feeds a little bit into some things that Estrella may be familiar with, hence why Estrella has been trying to worm some information out there. The only other thing I think was that Estrella has been sort of checking in regularly with former mentor Cassian, who is now the Lord Commander of Akros's military. It is Akros that has sent you, or the Queen Regent of Akros actually, has sent you out to do 3 things. There is a kidnapped queen that you must find and return. There is Cassian's father, Ulysses, formerly of House Laos, because he is now exiled and treasonous, who kidnapped the queen, who you will hopefully find and bring back alive to face justice. And also to track down the enigmatic mage Lady Helene, who seems to be the puppeteer behind all of the ongoings of season 1 and season 2, or some of them at least. And before you left, he requested, Cassian did, that you communicate with him regularly to update on progress, and also to let him know that you are safe. So, with these things in mind, I wanted to talk a little bit with you about how is Estrella feeling about the trip so far and how it has progressed.
Let me open with a question.
Oh,
what do you call something that has 3 holes in it and is full of knowledge?
Estrella.
Yes.
Estrella. Yes. During your altercation with the Sahuagin raiders, you did end up being stabbed by a trident.
There was a minor trident incident. Yes,
there was a minor trident incident, and you have been healed. Some healing magic has been applied to it. I do like to imagine that. I always like to imagine that it leaves some form of like mark that something was there. It will heal eventually. This is probably not one that's going to stay there forever. Not like your eye. That was a very serious incident. But you do every so often I think it slightly aches. It still bothers you, but it's definitely, this was a probably, oh goodness, time is an enigma. Probably a little while back now, so
time is a weird
soup.
It is
healing, but the marks of the holes that were there going through you are definitely still visible.
I keep getting stuck by things. So far, a lot of what has been going through Estrella's head as we have gone through Miletus, obviously that was a relatively tense bit of time. And then, of course, being stuck by a big fat trident on day 1 was certainly not the most auspicious way to begin the journey.
Yeah. It wasn't quite day 1, but I do see where you're going with that. Yeah, I think it was a little bit further in than that.
Yeah. But it's been fine. All in all, no one has died yet.
A good success.
Which honestly is a pretty big success. A lot of it has been mostly anxiety over Estrella is not used to not understanding things. And the Dakra Isles is certainly one of those things that defies explanation in a lot of ways, and that is unsettling. Which is why she has been throwing so much of her energy and her effort into trying to get to know them, which both Estrella and I are beginning to think that there is an element of chaos that cannot be explained that you have to lean into, which is something that she is not very used to.
Yeah, I do believe that, again, and I think that that's something that you and Cascade can agree on for sure. Cascade seems to be, despite your differences, there was some tension at the beginning, and I think that there has been this underlying root tension, but you and Cascade actually share a lot of similarities. She is a very focused, organized individual. She runs a very tight ship, and she also is not good at leaning into chaos and leaning into the unknown. I think that you would by now have kind of understood that a big part of what she loves about being on the open sea is the exploration side of things. She loves finding new information. She loves learning. She has that same sort of curiosity, that like natural curiosity that Estrella has always had.
The need to understand things.
Different. It's less about the history and more just about interesting new landscapes, creatures and things like that. But it's definitely like something that the two of you will probably have reluctantly in some ways bonded over.
Yeah. And I think that I am not a general fan of the alignment system, but I am branding the Dakra Isles chaotic lawful.
Chaotic lawful. I think, yeah, and I think that like I believe that the current plan is let's just follow the chaos and
Yes,
see
follow the
where it
wind.
takes us. Follow the wind, see where it takes us, which is not something that either Astrea or Cascade are comfortable with at all. And it feels like, especially as the two of you, especially, have a lot riding on this going well. There's a desire to return, back to land on your part and get this done quickly. You're used to, I think, achieving tasks with great speed and efficiency, and that is definitely looking like something that might not be the case in this instance. This is not a we sail out, we wrap this up in one day type scenario. This is something that could take time. A lot of trial and error.
I'm also very used to having a relatively clear path forward. And right now, what is essentially happening is I am sailing into a big ball of question marks, and then coming out the other side in some form.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think is Astrea's thoughts in terms of, obviously this was the way that the mission objectives were presented to you, was mission 1, find our missing kidnapped queen. Mission 2, find Ulysses and bring him back. Mission 3, deal with Lady Helene. What do you think Astrea thinks on that? Is there any part of it that she's like willing to just stop at, or is there any part of it that she's not willing to go, because they really want the queen back? That's their main thing.
Right. I think it's difficult to prioritize them because they are so intertwined with one another. I think as far as it's fairly easy to rank Ulysses or Helene. Well, I guess her top priority is going to be dealing with Ulysses. There is an element of closure there that, whether or not she admits it, she needs to happen. I think that she kind of assumes that there isn't necessarily going to be a problem locating any of the 3 objectives. It's really the question of prioritizing which to deal with. I think Helene is her lowest objective, which isn't to say that it's not important to her to deal with Helene, but it is more important to her to get the queen back and to get the closure that we need from Ulysses. Which obviously Helene certainly has more personal implications for others in the party because they have been directly affected by Helene's actions. For Astrea specifically, the hierarchy would be Ulysses, ideally, and the queen, and then Helene.
But if it was a choice, if a choice was presented of go after Ulysses or go grab the queen, Astrea would tend towards going after Ulysses.
That's a tough one. Remind me, was there a directive for this is the priority?
Yes. There was a directive from the Queen Regent. There was a directive for find the missing queen, my aunt, and return her. Try to get Ulysses as well, but my aunt's safety and her safe return is the most important objective. On Cassian's side, I will say he has not made any indication verbally as to what his priority is. He's not spoken up in terms of saying no, go after my father first or anything like that.
Right.
But he might have different objectives in mind.
Right. I think with a definitive directive saying the queen is the highest priority, she would try to orchestrate things in a way that she wouldn't have to choose. The choice itself would heavily depend on the circumstance,
Yeah.
which I think is an answer in and of itself as to what the priority is.
Yeah.
But it is a non-committal answer.
Estrella's head and Estrella's heart perhaps differ slightly and would have a disagreement with each other. In her head, she knows, yeah, I would go after the queen first, but something about it is like, but that won't happen because I won't let it, which says that perhaps it would be a more difficult choice than that.
Right. It would heavily depend on circumstance and what is going on in the moment.
All right. So let's think then about what an evening for Estrella looks like on this ship. So obviously, with all the stuff that I've already kind of mentioned in mind, what do you think Estrella would be doing this evening, just as she's about to sort of head to bed and go to sleep?
One, most importantly, tuck in that egg. I've got an egg to tuck in.
Oh yes. Yes. I did actually forget to mention that. Well, we kind of briefly touched upon it, but Estrella, when we had a fight with an angry lightning phoenix, and it, I use the term died loosely because it is a phoenix, but it reverted to its egg state, shall we say. And in an attempt to sort of protect itself. And I think that's where the altercation came from, because Cascade wanted to grab it and chuck it overboard and have nothing more to do with it.
Understandable, honestly.
Understandable, honestly, for the safety of the crew, for the safety of everyone. It's a wild creature. And I think you all, during the fight, got a real sense of that. There was no reasoning with it, there was no trying to communicate with it. Really, it had a very specific objective in mind, which was to defend its home, and believe me, you all tried to reason with it again and again and again, but there was just none that was not working out for you.
We did our best.
You absolutely, the creative methods that you guys came up with were just,
we did our very best.
Yeah,
Lulu's even in the chat confirming here, like she's corroborating. We did our best.
But we tried. It was just my favorite thing was going, okay, it's your turn next, and it's just like, I'm gonna try and do this, and I was like, no, just to be clear, no one is attacking this creature. It's getting closer and closer. Gave you like 2 or 3 rounds to, get some good hits on it. Needn't have bothered. But anyway, not the point. The point is, you tried. Eventually, you realized, I think we're going to have to bring this thing down. And once you did, it reverted to its egg state. Cascade wanted to chuck it overboard. Your party certainly did not want to do that. You were very interested. And I think, what was Estrella's particular interest in the egg?
Oh, it was so academic. She wanted to know everything about it. A lot of it was, I want to study the elemental applications of this. I want to know exactly how much power and energy is coming off of this egg. I want to take this egg, go to the library, and study this egg with it sitting right next to me. A lot of it is very academic and very... There was certainly a sense of kinship in the loosest sense of the word, in that, hey, we both like the Zap Zaps.
Oh, yeah.
But to her, it is essentially the embodiment of the element that she has been studying for so long. And she finds that fascinating.
And obviously, there's also, the sailors seem to refer to it in almost reverence. There's clearly a story behind this particular phoenix as well.
Yes.
So definitely interesting to find out.
Straight to the library.
Straight to the library to find out what that is. All right. So tucking in the egg, and I think as you kind of do sort of head into the room to do that, and I guess like rearrange, you will find your little sparrow familiar, Flitter, has done a pretty good job of almost without you asking, has already started to create like a nest. So has like flown out. I think that what you will have noticed about Flitter's behavior is a bit of a love-hate relationship with this egg. There was a lot of inherent suspicion to begin with. It's quite a large egg as well. So Flitter, looking at this thing, understands it's an egg, is immediately alarmed by the size of it, compared to the size of Flitter herself, a fully grown sparrow. And regards it with suspicion and perhaps a faint hint of jealousy, in terms of Estrella's fascination with it, and desire to learn more about it. But also understands that regardless of perhaps Flitter's own feelings on the topic, this is an important thing to Estrella and it must be looked after. So Flitter has been, as each day has gone by during patrols, going out, has come back with various bits of bric-a-brac from the sea, bits of like nesting and twigs and things. You find all sorts of like shit floating in the sea.
So gracious of her.
And essentially started to build a nest. Also grabbed like various scraps of things from the crew, bits of material, probably stolen some. You've definitely got a bit of like one of Hector's fancy cloaks, like in there, like got snagged on one of the balustrades, and he sort of like ruffled it off and continued on his way, and Flitter went straight in there and grabbed it.
Opportunistic little shit. I love her.
Opportunistic little shit. And I think that you'll find that this nest is just now this mishmash of like slightly damp wild twigs and things, and bits of seaweed and things like that, and people's fabrics and clothes and bits of sail and things.
So what I'm hearing is mine and Callista's room smells like seaweed.
Probably, yes. Probably.
Sorry,
does.
Callista.
Sorry, Callista.
You dream about the shit. It's fine.
You have there is a desk, and on the side of this desk, there is this egg is now sat on this makeshift nest, and one of the drawers of the desk constantly remains open now, and that is where Flitter has created her own nest in which she sleeps. So she sort of sits by it. She definitely would know that it zapped out lightning that one time, so she sits by it, but she does regard it with suspicion still. I think she is frightened that at some point she might end up being toasted by it, but
fried sparrow.
No. Not your own familiar.
I can resummon her. She's fine.
All right. So you've tucked the nest in, tucked the egg in. Is there anything else that Estrella? How does Estrella tend to like? I think that a lot of the evenings, the crew might get together, and do various things to try to keep up morale, so it's just not constant like sea. And I would imagine, and obviously I'm going to go into this in Kaliuka's solo session, but Kaliuka has been spending a lot of time with the crew, so I imagine that Kaliuka is a big hit amongst the crew, playing the bagpipes and causing laughter and joy, and just generally kind of being that kind of more inspiring, motivational piece. How does Estrella sort of interact in those moments when everyone is kind of like together and being jovial and drinking and singing and doing whatnot?
So, joviality, she doesn't jive with the Jove.
It doesn't jive with the joke. All right.
A lot of it is she will be present, but she will usually be off to the side, just quietly enjoying the atmosphere. Like, it's not to say that she's a big Grinch, but she prefers to observe rather than participate.
Yeah, that makes sense. So in this instance, obviously, I'm imagining that there's like some vacuous. It's not a celebration as such, but there is some kind of thing happening where everyone is kind of gathered, and does Estrella drink?
Estrella does not drink too much. She will occasionally drink, like a sip or two if offered, but is not a overall big drinker.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I think that there is something happening. It's causing quite a lot of noise. So if there's anything that Estrella wanted to concentrate on, she would probably be better served sort of inside, kind of scribbling away, because the on top of the deck is very loud.
Right. Yeah.
Or you can kind of go right to the other end of the boats, because they're kind of going to be fixated in the middle. So you could
the other. Well, I know one end is where Suri likes to hide out, so I will avoid that
Suri's
end
got a
because
little
I'm sure.
hideout. Yeah, she's got a the little rowboat. She's made that her own little cubby. She hides in there. And I think that she probably is sort of, if it's her that you're looking for, she is sort of sat. She's a bit like you. She's very distant. And I think she's probably remaining pretty close to her rowboat, but she is observing from afar, and occasionally when someone does something funny, she'll like laugh and stuff, but she's keeping back from everyone else. She's not really engaging.
Yeah, I think mostly I would spend a lot of my time near her, but not like, right next to her, because we both like our space, we both like our peace and quiet. So it's just kind of like a companionship, maybe too close of a word, but a general, this is the antisocial people's corner, and we are going to sit here.
But what I remember of your crew, there's quite a lot of people stood over there. Like, look, you've got Suri, you've got Tilly is kind of stood back, but probably Tilly would probably be nearer the captain. So as much as Tilly does not enjoy socially interacting as much and is not really engaging, probably she's just sort of sat with the captain. They're pretty close at this point. You definitely have got that vibe. They're very close. And the captain is engaging, and sort of like making the odd comment and drawing laughter and laughing herself, but is also making sure to take time to just interact one-on-one with Tilly a lot. But other than that, Hector's trying. He's trying to engage.
Poor Hector.
So I think it gets to a point as well that, like, probably some of the crew members are so drunk that they do actually sort of like occasionally laugh at his jokes and things like that, and then he seems to take great delight from that, like when
Hector.
someone actually like engages with what he's saying, which is kind of sweet. Cedric occasionally runs up and is kind of serving things out, but all right, so you kind of remove back. Do you attempt to talk to Suri at all, or do you just kind of stay?
I just kind of vibe. I would likely stay there for maybe a half hour before essentially being like, okay, that's enough peopling for one night. and heading down to kind of take a minute.
Well, I think as you kind of go to leave, Suri will probably catch your eye. She won't talk to you as such, but I think that since you had the conversation just before Kahara came screeching in, you were having quite a lengthy conversation about your some of your shared similarities, shall we say, some of your shared background. She is very aware that you have some connection with the sharks, or at least did. Obviously, you have moved on to do other things now, but at one point you did, and she is a piranha, and the piranhas and the sharks they are the two big rival gangs in Miletus that do not get on. And I think that she revealed to you that there had been some escalating tension. So before they had a sort of tenuous peace, you can remember this kind of like, they didn't like each other particularly, and they would get a little bit leery if someone overstepped and went on the other person's turf. But for the most part, Gunnar and Maria, who is the leader of the piranhas, managed to keep a pretty tenuous peace between the two. One side of the city for you, one side of the city for me, and that's how we'll kind of keep it. But something has clearly changed since your time there, and the peace is well and truly off, and now there is very much violence between the two gangs, sort of broken up with moments of sort of recovery and things like that, and then back at it again with the fighting. So it's just a sort of this constant, and Suri did describe it as like a war almost. It was like a people have been hurt, people have died as a result of it. Even civilians have got caught up in the sorry, your cat just went and it just really
murder. What? Hello.
It really took me by surprise. Even some civilians have got kind of caught up in it. So it's in a much worse state than you remember it being. And she revealed that, and she revealed that Nesta, someone that you know very well, is now leading the sharks, and has been a big part of the reason why this has kicked off. Why things have kicked off.
Yeah, and the whole surprise Nestor is now leading the sharks was a surprise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Gunnar is no longer around. That's what she told you. She didn't give you any more information as to what happened with Gunnar. She just said Gunnar's gone, and that's it. And since you've had that conversation, I don't think, because it was interrupted, and I don't think that you have really reconvened and finished that. She's certainly not approached you to.
There isn't really a good way of saying, so about that turf war.
Yeah.
There isn't really a great way of addressing that.
But there has been an improvement in the way that you two interact, I think. She doesn't try to actively avoid you anymore. She is happy to be in your presence. She's happy to sort of catch your eye and smirk, and there is almost a sort of, there's at points a sort of almost a shared camaraderie between you, and then she catches herself and she almost looks frustrated at herself, remembering that she's not supposed to like you. It's like that kind of like vibe of just like, she'll like laugh at something and she'll give you a look as if to say like, oh, we know better, or you know what I'm talking about, and then she'll remember herself and she'll just be like, not that means that we're cool or anything. It's like that. It's that kind of vibe.
Not that I like you, Baka.
Not that I like you or anything. So yeah, she's definitely she's about, we decided she's about 14 or 15, so she's definitely a moody teenager phase at the moment.
I love her so much. I would die for her.
I adore Suri. She's probably one of my favorite NPCs in the world. But okay, so she gives you that look as you kind of like walk, and she just kind of gives you a nod, And she sort of she reaches into her pocket and she kind of like checks something, and then she kind of like straightens up, and that's it. And you kind of head down to your cabin. What is it that you are doing there?
Step one, checking on my egg, making sure it is happy and warm and not killing my sparrow.
All seems well with the egg.
Absolutely excellent. And I
Oh, do you
will
know what?
give
Actually,
my.
let's do a roll, shall we? Should we do a roll for that?
Okay, sure. We'll do a roll.
Yeah, let's do a roll for that because I just remember we're playing Dungeons and Dragons, aren't we? We should do some rolls. What? Rolling in Dungeons and Dragons? Please do a perception check. Oh, I'll let you choose the way you want to do it. Are you coming at it from you're just checking in it, like were you looking at it, or are you coming at it from from your knowledge of how it should be in terms of, because that would be more nature, I think.
I think I would want to make sure that it is healthy, healthy and not acting abnormally. I think that does lend a more academic lens to it.
Let's do an academic lens to it then. Please roll a nature check for me.
Fantastic. Let's go ahead and roll using these dice that I got at UKGE.
Yay!
I'm so sorry. I was so excited to use this die. I forgot what you asked me to roll. What was it?
Nature, please.
Okay.
Nature, please.
Okay. Oh, that's garbage. Wow. Well, I have a +8, but it's a total of 13. I rolled a 5.
Yeah, I forgot that you call anything below
25.
20.
Okay.
Garbage.
To be fair, I rolled a 5.
Okay, you did roll a 5. That is garbage, but you do have a +8. So 13. I think that you probably, I'm gonna put it as you don't give it a really thorough inspection. You know, at this point you've checked it a few times and nothing seems to have changed, but you do sort of go through the list. You have a list in your mind. I'm checking for abnormal coloring. I'm checking for different heat patterns. I'm checking to see if it's sparking lightning. Doesn't seem to be doing any of the things that you would expect it to be doing. Should something be wrong, or should the being that is currently housed inside be in any way upset or distressed?
I am absolutely
know about it shortly.
I am absolutely the type to be like, I'm gonna touch it, and if it hurts, I'll worry about it.
And there's this when you touch it, every time you touch this egg, there is this sort of like a I'm gonna compare it to a cat when you go to stroke a cat and they weren't expecting it, and they
make the merp noise.
They make the little merp noise, and
yeah,
they
sort of Buddha.
They almost tense up a little bit, but then they're immediately like, "Oh, it's you," and then they kind of just chill out again. This is the vibe you get from the egg. This sort of like strange like vibration from it, like a staticky vibration. It doesn't hurt, but it's like it kind of does respond to being touched in a sort of like oh okay kind of way.
Like it makes the hairs on my arm stand up a little bit for a sec.
Yeah, just for a second, the hairs on your arm stand up. You get little goosebumps go across your arms. But yeah, seems warm, seems happy.
Oh, it's adorable. I give it a little pat and I say, nice to see you too. And I think at this point, as we are getting closer and closer, since we have pretty much officially entered the area where we are going to start actually going out onto the islands and looking for this island that we looked for. Please remind me of the name of the island.
Carapaya?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I was like,
oh my goodness, you really put me on the spot then. I was like,
I'm sorry.
Oh my goodness, what is it called?
I'm sorry.
Carapaya.
Yes, okay. So as we are kind of getting to the point where we can now start actively looking for Carapaya and trying to actually navigate these isles and not just get to them. Bye, Katie. I think Estrella is trying to start to get into the habit of, she has not been as good as she should have been with keeping in touch regularly with back home. And she is going to try to make a conscious effort to get better at it, especially now that, again, like now we are getting into the thick of things. So she is going to pull out that little glorb, another Therosianism.
A little Therosianism right there, yeah.
For those who are new, it's the glass orb. I call it the glorb.
It's not a Therosianism at this point. This is a Gen portmanteau.
Shut your fuck.
This is the Gen portmanteau. Okay, so you pull out this little glass orb, and it's at this point you kind of have experimented with it a little bit. You know that while holding on to it, you haven't really implemented this feature yet, but it can hold. It's a communication device. You can hold conversations over it. It does have a sort of limited time span that it will be charged, and then it sort of loses its magic until the next morning. But it's not a case of just like only one message can be exchanged and that's it. It's very like for a certain period of time. It's almost like when it's like a very small battery, I guess, magical reserve in it that will allow you to have like short conversations, and then it will need to wait until the next day. Most likely because anything longer would have been incredibly expensive. Maybe there was a budget that Cassian had to stick to. But yes, you kind of get it out. It's this beautiful little orb, and it's part of a pair. So in this particular one, there is this sort of there is the sea, and you can see this little ship sort of, and it's inside. It's got this they're all parts that look like that they are made of glass, but they are moving magically by themselves, and making up sort of like, you can see like these waves. They kind of like move in sort of like it's almost like a clockwork mechanism, but instead of there being any mechanism, it's just fully powered by magic. Maybe this is where the battery's going. It's not efficient. And there's this small sparrow that is sort of circling. It looks a lot like Flitter. And it is circling round and round this ship. And you know that its pair that Cassian has got, there is it's sort of like a almost desert-like cliff, and on the edge there's a small lion cub that's just sort of like looking out, and when you put the two together, it looks like the lion cub is looking out over the sea. So it's quite pretty. It's a very thoughtful present, but it's a communication device, of course. And yeah. I think it's. I mean, of course, it would look pretty. He's a noble.
He's got money to make things look fancy. He can't be seen with a shoddy glorb.
Couldn't be seen with a shoddy glorb. So you pick it up, and it's sort of like you feel it kind of go warm with that sort of like magical expectation as you go to send a message.
I never said I was sending a message. I'm totally sending a message.
Oh, right. Okay, well, we're just throwing it out the window then. My mistake.
I'm just imagining Cassian just in bed, doing his thing, living his life, and he just gets a message from like a fish that brushed past him going blub, blub, blub. And he's like, Estrella, you good?
Absolutely think that Estrella had drowned.
Like, you good? But no.
That's what the fish would hear back.
Oh yeah, totally. And the fish is like, "You trying to kill me?" But no, she does focus her energy into sending a message, which is, it still sounds a little bit awkward because there's still this new weird dynamic of friendship ? That's going on.
Certainly you're not the bane of each other's existence anymore.
Yes,
something has shifted, but we're not quite
much
sure
less contentious. It's much less contentious. It's more, it's At the very least, it is friendly colleagues.
I think I would probably describe it as it's a little bit like how you were when you first met him, and you didn't know him well enough to have this sort of like bantering, like contentious relationship. So you were kind of like that awkward, formal, but
Politeness.
it's even more awkward because there is history in
Right.
some way there where you have had this contentious bantering relationship.
Right.
So it's like you're trying to start again, but you know already what frustrates him and what ticks him off and things like that. So it's like, oh, it's not like coming onto a stranger with this kind of energy.
Right. It's like this awkward, okay, let's pretend that part didn't happen.
Let's pretend that didn't happen, but you can't really. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think what ends up happening is just this awkward, still not dead, still looking for Carapaya, still have no idea what we're doing. And then just this awkward silence.
Love that last bit of the message. All right, still have no idea what we're doing. Okay, I think that there's a pause, and then you hear back. Well, the first two are at least good news. The third doesn't sound like you.
It's the Dakra Isles defy explanation in the worst possible way.
Aha, an unsolved mystery. Your favorite thing, no? And he sounds a little, because it is quite late at this point. He does sound a little sleepy, but it doesn't feel like you've just woken him up. It does sound like he was awake, but he's just kind of starting
like
to
winding
get
down.
tired. Yeah.
Luckily, there is an expert on board that we can leverage to understand this a bit better, but I would feel much better if I understood it better already.
And I think you can tell he's trying to get a sense of positivity from you. So he goes into soldier morale boosting mode.
What a good boy.
And he is just like, oh, come on now, where's your sense of adventure? Sometimes it's good to learn things from scratch. You loved our martial training.
There's just long silence.
Then I think over the course of the long pause, there is a slight chuckle because he knows that is not the case.
That is the biggest load of bullshit I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Sure. Loved is a word that we can use. Much in the same way that I love hitting things with large swords, which is obviously my specialty.
There's another long pause, and he goes, well, I mean, I admired your trying, but perhaps sticking with the lightning and leave the hitting things with swords to me, and Onyx, of course, in my absence.
Caliuga does wonders with a mop.
With a mop?
Yes.
I'll bear that in mind.
I think there's like another little silence of like this awkward, do I
It's
just ignore him?
Yeah,
it's so awkward. A little bit.
I think if there's a little silence, he will interrupt it with, so how are you doing?
And I think the first instinct is to launch into, once again, still don't know what we're doing, still in the Dacra Isles. Like she almost forgets that she kind of already told him what she's doing. And after a second, it's alive. Have you done all of your fancy Lord Commandery shit?
No, as it turns out, it's a lengthy process. All of this feels like a lengthy process. And there's this sort of like sigh, this like soft sigh. And then he kind of says, I do have my swearing in ceremony tomorrow.
You don't sound particularly excited.
Well, I've only attended one, and I didn't expect to have mine so quickly.
Do me a favor.
What's the favor?
Don't let them make you boring and stuffy.
He's quiet for a moment, and he says, I thought I was already boring and stuffy.
A little. Don't let them make you more boring and stuffy.
I shall endeavor to be as exciting and
not stuffy.
I'll try. Not stuffy. I had to try and think of a word there. I'll try, Stray. I really will. I'll add it to my list.
And if you really need an out, I can always call you again tomorrow, roughly around your swearing in time, and manufacture some crisis that forces you to leave in a hurry.
I'll bear that in mind. And he pauses and says, after my swearing in ceremony, I wouldn't mind some conversation if you find yourself free.
I think I can do that. Assuming we haven't been swallowed up by the ocean yet.
Please do tell me if you feel like you might be swallowed up by the ocean.
I will do my very best. I love this awkward stilted.
It's so awkward and so stilted. But it is an attempt at some level of friendship. And I think what makes it a bit odd is it's not actually cat. It's not actually I think that there's parts of it that you're quite surprised by the fact that it doesn't feel more awkward at points. That bantering sort of like energy hasn't quite gone away, but it seems to have shifted into something less
confrontational.
Less confrontational. Like you have moments where it feels all okay. Oh no. No, over there.
Okay, we're good.
Is a cat trying to be sick? Everything okay?
Yes, everything's fine.
Not on my stuff. Oh bless. It's okay.
He's fine.
Okay. And I think it becomes a little bit like I think at points it's odd that it feels easy. Because you're kind of like tense and expecting it to be really difficult, and then you both have these moments where it's almost like slipping into normal conversation, and then you kind of startle back out of it, like, oh yeah, it's awkward and weird, and so you're in that sort of weird transitional phase, I think, of trying to re-get to know each other a bit.
It's definitely very strange. It's more strange because it's not confrontational than anything else. But I think at least this first time there's like this awkward time. There isn't really a formal goodbye. It's more just like an eventually we both stop talking.
I think he does actually in this. Maybe is the first time that they actually say it, because normally it's like, this is the update. Okay, thanks. With maybe just a little bit of like asking questions or whatever. But I think as you've had some semblance of conversation, he does sort of sign off in some way, and says, well, you should probably get some rest so you can tackle things anew tomorrow. I'm sure the morning will help to put some fresh perspective on things, but don't lean on the others, Estrella. Don't feel like you have to do all of the figuring things out by yourself.
We shall see. But if you need, you've got the glorb if you need anything. Which is basically her way of saying, call me if you need something, but she's not going to say it.
Call me maybe. And Estrella Ray Jepsen stepping in there.
Oh, God.
And he sounds for the first time a little bit more like at ease, and he kind of says, well, good night then, and I will, of course.
Good night.
You're not 100% convinced that he will, but
oh, absolutely not.
He seems more open to the idea now.
Yeah. Just this awkward exchange of good nights, and then just like this weird
silence.
Yeah. As the battery runs out.
And I think you always leave a little bit of battery in case there's an emergency.
Just in case. Yeah.
So I think that it's you could still talk to him, but at some point you're like, this is you can feel it starting to cool in your hands, and you're like, I need to keep some reserve. And he knows the same. He's very like, we should sign off
just in case.
Here, just in case. All right, and then you head to bed, I presume.
It's bedtime. It's time for snooze.
Time for snoozes. So you sort of get yourself into bedtime mode, and you close your eyes and you begin to fall asleep. And when you open your eyes again, Estrella, it is not morning in the ship's cabin. You wake curled up in a small cubby, much smaller than you remember it because you have grown so much since you last used it. A nest of moth-bitten blankets and stained pillows. And there are other such cubbies around, the odd toy here and there, but yours has only a small pile of children's books next to it. The only light filtering in comes from a small cracked window in the corner of the room, and the place is exactly as you remember it, except for one glaring detail. A thin, taut thread with a sort of silvery purple sheen that occasionally sparks with lightning is wrapped around various objects in the room, draped from corner to corner, and eventually leading out of the door, which is slightly ajar. What kind of memories does this place bring back?
A lot of the first instinct is nostalgia. This reminds me a lot of when I was first learning to read. When I was first, or I guess, first learning to read on my own. When I was first stepping out into the beautiful world of chapter books. And things that I could more independently, I guess, enjoy without the help of anyone else. And the first thing I do, I think, is take a look at these children's books. And just get a sense of what part of my childhood am I remembering right now.
Make an investigation check for me.
Perhaps. Let us see. Okay, average. Please hold. 18. Okay, I rolled a 10. I rolled a 10.
Yeah, but
it's average.
18 is not average, but you take a you go into analysis mode immediately. Where am I? Why am I in these surroundings? And it's weird because it doesn't feel like a dream. It feels like you're just stood in this room, like you've been transported there. You take a good look around, and your focus is particularly on these books. You are remembering a time probably from when you were sort of you were very quick to pick up reading. I think
I was one of those weird ass kids that learned to read at like 2 or some shit.
I think it would be difficult to tell exactly how old you were, just based on the fact that probably you didn't have a whole lot of books. And so you ended up reading the same ones again quite a lot. But what you will see about these books is these are very much your books, favorite ones that you remember reading when you were a child. A lot of them are about princes and sort of romantic, sort of fairy tale-esque people overcoming an obstacle and then getting together at the end, slaying the dragon, as it were, slaying the proverbial dragon. It is like the way that you feel about the books gives you a sense that you were a little bit older, perhaps maybe sort of like 8 or 9, just because you remember sort of being a little bit more fixated on sort of the heroes of the story that were like the sword wielding, dashing heroes that would go in and save the day. And always, were filled with this sense of justice and integrity and honor. And you remember this because you remember being teased about it. Definitely the fancy type of person that's just a bit too good to be true in a lot of ways.
Oh yes, these books have definitely instilled a bit of an unrealistic expectation for romance. For Estrella.
Certainly when you were a kid, yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's a moment where I'm looking between these books and the blankets and this strange string thread thing. Do I hear anything from outside? Like normally if I, if I would wake up in the room like this, there would be some sort of noise, something happening.
There was always
is there any sound? Yeah, is there any sound?
Roll a perception check for me.
Let's find out. Oh, that's not bad. 16.
Mocking my accent.
No.
I'm gonna minus points for that. 16. You you wake, and so you listen out. For 16 is pretty good. So what I will give you, immediately, no, this room is eerily silent, which is weird. You can always remember waking up here and there's at least one other person in this room with you, first of all, which this is just not the case now. This is completely empty. And if not with you, certainly clomping up and down the corridors outside. Always a buzz with activity. This particular room it's very difficult actually to get a good night's sleep here, just because the walls are thin and peeling. It's a very old building and half falling apart, to be honest. And it's difficult to get that kind of like peace here. So it's very odd just being in this place by yourself. With a 16, what you hear beyond that, a very faint sound of, it's almost a bit like thunder, but it is a bit more rhythmic than thunder. It's like someone took the sound of thunder and is like looping it in a very rhythmic, odd way. So it doesn't sound like natural thunder at all. It's like a low vibration, and very, very distantly, maybe you might catch the sound of people talking, but just briefly for a moment.
Come to think of it, looking down, looking at myself, am I dressed like current Estrella or am I dressed like baby Estrella?
You are dressed like current Estrella.
Okay. Am I roughly the same height as current Estrella?
Yeah.
Okay.
Everything feels small.
So I'm like adult Estrella running around in
You're
baby
adult
Estrella
in this room that you remember being your childhood room. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Do I have my glorb?
You go to fish in your pocket to find it? No.
There's definitely a little surge of not quite panic, but nervousness. Because at this point I am so used to having it. It's kind of weird to not. But I will look between the little blanket nest and the string one more time, and I will start to follow this thread.
Okay. So you're heading out to the door that's slightly ajar.
Yes.
You open it up, and you see sort of what you expect to see, which is the sort of corridor that you would expect to see outside. But it is different. It's warped. It is much, much longer than you ever remember it being. You know, normally you would come out and there's like a sort of a room on either side, and then there's like it gets to the end and then you can either turn one way or another. This time it's like a really long stretch of wall. There are lots and lots and lots of rooms on either side, and you can see at the end there is a way to turn off either way, but there's a door at the end that is not normally there, but you recognize the door. Normally that's a bit further and around, but you do recognize the door. You know what door that is. That is Gunner's room.
Okay. Is that kind of the direction that I heard the voices coming from?
You think so? Yeah.
Okay.
See, I'll give you that. Right now, as you step out into this space, it's still and quiet. But you can, from behind the nearest door, you do catch some sound, but you're not quite sure what it is.
Okay. So, being Estrella, I have to fucking experiment.
Right, I expected nothing less.
So I'm going to keep an eye on this thread because I want to make sure it doesn't just fuck off on me. But I'm going to inch my way toward a different door that the thread isn't going towards to see what the thread does and whether or not it fades or it changes or something weird happens. And I'm going to kind of like, assuming nothing happens, I'm going to kind of like reach my hand out for the handle of the door and watch that thread.
What I will say first of all is you notice with this thread, because I did not describe, the thread is coming out of the door that you've just exited out of. It is then sort of like doing this very strange weaving pattern almost, where it sort of dips under one door and then comes out, and then it dips under the next door and then comes out. It seems to be sort of connecting all of these doors, but you've no idea sort of how long it is inside each room, whether it almost sort of looks like it's just sort of slightly dipping in and then coming out rather than it's actually in there. And
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are all of the doors touched by this thread somehow?
All of the doors are, yeah.
Okay.
And they are all closed.
Okay. Then I will open the first because I want to see. Is there any door that isn't touched by the thread?
No.
Okay. So I will pick.
It kind of weaves in and out, in and out, in and out, and then it heads straight towards that door at the end.
So then, I will open the first door that the thread leads to in the path from this room to wherever it goes. So I'll pick on that door. Fuck you, door. I will pick that door, and I will, in the style that I always did, when entering a room where you don't know who is in there, very quietly and very stealthily, open the door and just see what's inside.
All right. You get to the door. The first thing you notice is there is a very narrow, and I mean narrow, window in this door. And you kind of look around, all the doors seem to have them. You go to open it. It's locked.
Okay.
But you can now, I will say you can hear noises from the other side. Do you want to try to listen or look to see what might be behind it?
Yeah, so I would like to try and look through that window. The first instinct in this environment is to try and pick the lock, but the instinct as Estrella is to look and listen. So we're going to look and listen.
Okay. You sort of try the door handle a couple of times. It's definitely not able to open. And even like it's not even that it feels locked. It actually feels incredibly stiff. Like it feels like you can see as well, like around the door frame, that it's very like old, and it's not a new door or anything like that. It looks like it would be an old, difficult to shift door. You sort of look and listen. You try to peer in. Roll me a perception check, please.
Oh.
Not good. Oh, a natural 1. What's plus what?
I think it's +2. Yeah, +2.
A 3. You can only... So you try to peer in. It's incredibly dark. The other side, like almost pitch black, and it's even like you have exceptional vision, but for you it's still dark, and it's like it's very odd experiencing darkness as someone who is not used to experiencing darkness in that way. Like you can normally kind of like see what's going on, but it seems very dark, and also your view is obstructed by some long support, it looks like, or a pillar of some kind. It's difficult, but what you do get, what I will give you is the slight sound of splashing water and a faint I'm gonna put it delicately, a faint smell of sewage.
Okay. Shit and we.
And we, yeah.
Okay. If I give the thread another look, no, I'm not going to do that. Okay, so I will chalk this up to the dream gods are not feeling it today, and I am going to proceed on to the next door.
You head on to the next door, exactly the same. Very stiff, locked, small window.
Hard to see.
Well, roll a perception check. There is
stop
sound
using this die. I don't trust this die anymore. Let's see. I can. A good purple and black die. Perfect. We'll take that one too. I'm not using any more purple and black dice. 6.
6.
Kill me.
It is not. It's not that it's dark necessarily. It's this one. It is almost like it's a little bit smoky or foggy. Mm-hmm. And you can hear the sound of it's sort of a looped sound almost, and it's the sound of a child excited and someone else sounding like nervous or tense, and what I will give you is that the child that is excited sounds like something about the intonation and the pitch of it. It sounds a lot like you when you were a child.
Okay. I would like to eat some dicks. I would like to. I think at this point, Estrella is reaching a point where it's hard for her to hear. She can't really see that well. And there is a part of her that feels like there is a point. Yes, Joan, that is what I said. There is a part of her that I think is getting frustrated because this is clearly supposed to be something. There's clearly a reason that she is here. Whether it's some weird symbolism of her own making or something else. So she is actually going to just smack the door a few times like she's knocking on it, and just see if anyone answers.
So you try to smack the door. No one answers from the other side of the door. It's in fact, there's not even a moment of like break or as if you can definitely hear voices inside this one, whereas you couldn't before with the other one. It's difficult to make out what they're saying. It's like it's mumbled or it's but you can kind of get only a sense of mood. The moment that you smack the door, you expect the voices to stop or whoever's inside to kind of respond, but it's almost like they don't hear you. They continue to have this sort of like looped moment. It goes on for about a minute. It starts off as this just like child sounding delighted about something. Someone is responding back sounding panicked, and then it continues more delight, and then there's like a break where both of them are just kind of like half screaming or getting upset with each other. It's difficult to tell exactly what's going on in the conversation, but it's it sounds like it's just a continued loop, and it goes on for about a minute or two, and then it starts again. And you get the sense that they don't hear you. Whoever's in there, they don't respond. However, you do hear a voice sort of reverberating, and as it does, the threads sort of vibrate slightly, and you hear a voice kind of reverberating around the corridor, saying, you seem so eager to get in when it is you yourself that has shut yourself out.
And I think the instinct is obviously to freeze and to listen, but then to try and look around, identify if there is a direction at all that I can sense this voice coming from. I imagine the answer is no, because reverberation tends to be directionless. But I think once I kind of
like it's almost coming into your head. It's like there's no sense of direction. No.
Yeah. So I think the next instinct would be to kind of look at this thread, look at the ceiling. What does that mean?
It means exactly as I say. You are a person that wants answers to everything, but these are not answers that you have sought for a long time.
I didn't, though. I didn't. Why am I here?
There's silence, but the thread sort of like sends a vibration through itself up towards. It sort of goes from door to door up towards the door at the end.
Nice and cryptic. I love it. Which she actually says.
I will also allow you to do a religion check as well, or something that might give you an indication of what on earth is going on, because I'm getting the sense that at this point that Estrella knows that she's sort of dreaming, but it's not quite a dream, and it's very odd. So,
and like Estrella has theories, and like she has a couple of thoughts, but she needs to take a second to put the pieces together. You said religion?
Yeah, religion, I think, is probably your best bet.
We're going to use something that is very much not Durkle and very much... We're going to use something green.
What?
I knew I should have done it. That's a natural 20 for a total of 25.
Hey! Okay, what I will definitely give you is at this point, you know, Estrella has been trying to get into these doors, and it's frustrating because she can't get in and she can't hear or see really what's going on behind them. She knows that there is some clue as to why she's here behind these doors, but it's not really presenting itself very well, and it's a cryptic answer from this enigmatic figure. But there can only be one real explanation as to why you've been pulled into a dream of such nature, and this is most likely the meddling deities of the Nyx that is responsible for this, or at least an agent of. And so now comes the part where Estrella files through her memory banks and picks up on every single thing that she knows about every single god and tries to figure out which one it is that's chatting to her. It is not a difficult one for you to figure out. There's a lot of clues around, and you kind of listen, and you can still hear that low, what sounds like a rumble of thunder, which might have led you to your sort of patron god Keranos, god of storms and wisdom, as your initial thought. But it's too looping, it's too It's not thunder. It's just something that is designed to sound a bit like thunder, perhaps to put you at ease, or perhaps to, you're not really sure, but you realize as you listen to it more and more, it does remind you of something. It reminds you of when you were a child. Your home was certainly not in the more affluent area of the city. It was the place where all the workers were, and you, as a result, lived near and around a lot of seamstresses, and it reminds you of that sort of rhythmic weaving of a loom, that you, it's just that kind of like vibration, and you realize the thread, the odd loom sound, there is only one deity that presents themselves with such symbols, and that is Clothis.
It's giving Clothis,
weaver of fate.
And I think there is a moment as Estrella is staring down at these strands, where that bit of realization comes over her face. The dramatic camera pan to the, oh yeah, okay, I know what's going on.
Oh yeah, just I'll roll in my eyes. Oh, all
right. And I think as she kind of looks between the doors, and she looks back up at the ceiling and down at these threads. Do I need to be able to look into these rooms? What do I do to unblock this?
There's a moment of silence, and then you receive a response. You are already on a path that will allow you to view these things again. And that is not what I am here to talk to you about. But I am merely showing you a course that your life has taken so far. Look through another door.
Okay. And as bidden, Estrella will leave the second door and go to the third.
You head over to the third, and you are being aided this time by Clothis, so you have advantage on this roll. Clothis,
just being like, you need it. Catch just feel like, you fucking need it, bitch.
You need this help.
Oh, that's so much better. 21.
21. Okay, so you look in, and it's almost like you watch as you kind of look into this window, and it's like a gauze. You realize what you've been looking through, it's not been like actual physical darkness. It's almost like a blindfold that was kind of placed over on the other side is removed, and you watch as this material sort of slips away, and you can see much more clearly for this one. And you see a very clear moment of yourself as a young child. You are in the middle of a street. You've just finished talking to a student of the Decacia Academy, and you are probably at this point about sort of 6 or 7. You remember this moment very clearly because this is the first time that you encountered anyone that attended the Decacia. And she talked your ear off for ages about how wonderful the school is and how maybe one day when you grow up you could attend it. And that was when that sort of instilled that ambition to do
Little
that.
seed.
That little seed was planted because she, you know, performed one or two what you now know to be very small
Basic
magic,
cantrips like dancing lights.
basic cantrips. But when you were a child, that was like the most amazing thing you'd ever seen. And as she's kind of like, as you kind of draw this conversation to a close, your big brother, Nestor, he takes you by the arm, and you're watching as he sort of starts to, not so politely, but in a way that will get you out the conversation, make excuses and lead you away. It was that sort of like, I've been looking for you everywhere type.
Yeah. And of course I was like, no, I was being shown this super cool stuff.
Of course. And of course, you know as well that he wasn't looking for you everywhere. He was nearby, and he knew where you were. And the moment you are sort of away and you watch as the two of you kind of walk down an alleyway, you just have this small moment of just watching him grin and say, you know, excellent distraction techniques, and he's kind of complimenting you, but he's sort of like filing through like his takings essentially, and he's robbed these Decacia students that were kind of talking to you, and taken a pretty penny or two from them, because they are quite affluent and well off, and you as a child begin to berate him, and say, oh no, that she was a nice lady, like why are you stealing from her? And he distracts you. He pulls something from beneath his jacket and he goes, oh, like, I've got something for you too, didn't I? And he presents a book for you to read, and it is one of the Decacia's like official like books, one that you ended up keeping hold of for, you probably still have
I probably still have it.
Actually, you probably
still have it
in your studies. It's one of the official like Decacia like course material books. And watching this, you realize behind these doors, you kind of remember that scent of like that faint scent of sewage. And you hear like the sound that you could hear sort of splashing water, and you realize, oh, it's footsteps splashing. These are memories of me and my brother specifically. Not to say that they're all good memories necessarily, but memories.
Formative, at least.
They're locked away. They're inaccessible, and perhaps Clothis is right. Perhaps that is something of your own choosing and your own doing. But you can now see at the end of this corridor, the door that is Gunner's door is slightly ajar, and the thread sort of vibrates and leads into it, and those voices you could hear before, they're louder now, and it is a conversation. It is the conversation that changed the course of your life forever. And you know what is going on behind that door.
And I think it's funny because I know what I'm going to hear. I have already heard it before. I know exactly what's going to happen if I walk up to that door and listen. And I'm going to do it anyway.
You begin to walk down this corridor, and at this point, what you can hear behind the doors is actually much louder. You hear moments from your childhood. You hear a moment that you ran into Nestor's room and told him that you had a nightmare, and he argued with you to just go back to sleep anyway, but eventually he let you into his bed. he wasn't happy about it, but he did. You hear a moment where you first performed some form of magic that you had actually read from that very same book, and you had practiced and learnt yourself, and he shouted at you in a way that you do not ever remember being shouted at by him. He was panicking, he was terrified that you could do this, and you hear, as you get closer, these sort of noises from behind these doors get louder and louder and louder till it almost becomes overwhelming. And you can hear the moment that you begged and begged for Nesta to please just try and talk to Gunnar one last time and convince him to let you go to the Decacia. And he promised he would. And then you reach the door and you hear Gunnar saying, you know, I think she could do so much better than here, Nesta. I know you want her to be your second eventually, and, you know, I get it. She's a smart thing, but perhaps we could use something. We could use someone like her. They do all these scholarships and shit at that academy. Maybe she's good enough to get in. And you hear Nesta say to Gunnar, it's useless. I've talked to her about it. She doesn't want to go to the Decacia. She just wants to stay here. And Gunnar sighs and says, well, if that's what she wants. And that is the end of the conversation.
I think the feeling of listening to that is very similar to, I know you're a big fucking Hadestown nerd. Like it's
what?
It's that feeling of, you know what's gonna happen, you know he's gonna turn around, but you hope that maybe for just a second, you hope maybe he won't.
Be different. It will be a different ending.
Yeah.
Or
and that's kind of like,
or there's something
exactly
that didn't.
Or maybe this one's doing it differently, right? Exactly. It's like, maybe this time it'll be different. It's that kind of feeling as she's listening to this conversation happen again.
And that betrayal, you remember being hidden by this door and listening to what you thought was going to be a conversation of your brother convincing Gunnar to let you go to this academy. And in fact, it's a conversation of him convincing Gunnar not to let you go to this academy. And how much that stung at the time. And you remember why you locked these memories away. Because it hurt. And at that point, the door swings open wide.
But no one comes out of it.
No one comes out of it.
I think there is a moment where I just sit there and blink. Because this wasn't a memory I'd exactly gone to sleep expecting to relive. But also now I am in my 20s. I am no longer this shy little kid. So I storm in. And basically I storm in being like, you know what? What's inside?
All right. You storm in, and the moment that you step in, it is just for a moment, you kind of go in all guns blazing and you blink. And when you open your eyes again, you are not in the room that you expect to be in. You are not in Gunner's room. Nesta is not in there. They're not both staring at you in surprise as you are about to confront them. Instead,
And another thing.
You are in your next bedroom. A cramped, again, many beds fill this space. It is the Decacia dormitory where you ended up spending almost a decade of your life. Your childhood and the people within it far behind you, and yet so close, too close. And as you go in, arms raised, ready to, there are some students in the room with you, and they are looking at you expectantly, almost a little surprised at your demeanor. And they seem to be waiting for some kind of reply. And the girl who you recognize, she kind of shares the dorm with you. She has her arms crossed, and she's looking at you, and she says, well? And at that point, we're going to go on a break now. And we will come back to this. So thank you so much of those of you that have joined us. We really appreciate you doing so. We will be back shortly, and we will continue this. We're going to go stretch our legs, fill up water, all of those things. And yeah, so see you very soon. Cheerio. Hey! We didn't keep you waiting very long, we hope. But yeah, we just need a little stretch our legs and everything like that. But we are back with Therosian Odyssey Season 3, Episode 1, which I have aptly titled, I don't know if the Burb has noticed.
Oh, I certainly did.
Sparrow Soars, which I thought was very sweet.
It's very alliterative.
Very alliterative, yes it is. I didn't do that on purpose, but actually, you know what? I'm a writer. I'm gonna say I did.
Take the credit.
I did it on purpose. So thank you for joining us for Hours of Uncertainty, our third season of Therosian Odyssey. If you have not seen yet seasons 1 and 2, and you want to know what some of these references and some of these things are about, and why Lulu in the chat is saying "brother!" exclamation mark question mark, then please head on over to the Girls Run These Worlds YouTube channel, and you will find the VODs. I have also made up a playlist of them all, and I have popped it in chat, and it is occasionally cycling through when chat gets active. Thank you, Moobot, for your dedication and hard work. Head on over to the Girls Run These Worlds YouTube, and you will find there is playlists of the VODs there for you to watch. With that in mind, we have just had our poor Astrea has gone down a trip down memory lane, and has seen some memories that perhaps she has kept under wraps and locked away for a little while. But she's now faced them a little bit, and she came in to this door very strongly, wanting to face it and yell and get some answers. And she has found herself now trapped in a new place, a new memory, one of her a little bit older, probably from her sort of 3rd or 4th year at the Decatur at this point. So you've been there a while.
Probably late teens?
Late, exactly, yeah. So you're probably about like 17 or 18 at this point. And you can remember this moment. You remember it in a way that you remember that it happened often. They are looking at you expectantly. They're expecting an answer. It's like you've kind of been pulled in mid-conversation, so you're not actually sure what they've just asked you. But the skull, Felicia, her name is. She is one of the few people that share your dorm, because there's probably about 6 to 8 beds in here, of various people's beds. But she kind of looks at you expectantly. Well,
I just sorry, deja vu. What?
Are you coming with us tonight?
To
the party? And she kind of turns around, and she is trying, but her cohorts around her look considerably less impressed. They're bored. They're waiting for the response that they know they're always going to get from you. And one of them sort of leans in, and he says, she never comes. Just leave it.
And I'll just, I have a lot of revision to do. Sorry.
Oh, come on, Astrea. Just once will you put the books down and come and have some fun with us? It's going to be down at the docks. It's going to be absolutely, I know we shouldn't, but we've rented a warehouse. There's going to be drinks, and there'll be loads of us there.
Maybe later.
And
maybe
one
next
of the others
time.
tries to also get in there, and it's just like, maybe we'll see some sharks. And someone else just goes, which kind of shark? And they kind of laugh.
Maybe next time. Go have fun, though. Bring me back a pig in a blanket or something.
They are all giving you that look of, you have said maybe next time for the last 3 years. Every time we've asked you. And the guy who kind of leaned in before and was like, oh, she's useless. She's just, why are you so antisocial? Like, are we that repulsive to you that you don't want to spend time with us?
I've just got a lot going on. A lot of revision. We've got that exam next week.
It is at that point that they kind of like look defeated, and you know, mixture of just like maybe looking a bit I think mostly Felicia, because she shares a dorm room with you and is clearly trying. She does look a bit disappointed, but she kind of gives in, and she knew this was probably going to be
It's expected.
The guy that was sort of leaning in, he just rolls his eyes. He's had it. And the others, they look apathetic. I think, if anything, they don't really care one way or another. They're just excited to go. They're just like, oh, come on, like this, and let's just go get ready. And they start to head out of the room. And as they are heading out, two more kind of pass them, and they kind of go, and let the crowd go past. And you recognize them immediately. They're people that you have definitely seen more recently than your previous area. Maybe you haven't really seen them for a while, but maybe a few months ago, you might have caught up with them just on a sort of off day away from Akros and heading back to the Decacia for some small visit.
Midterm reviews.
And it is Bast and Lyra, your two friends at the Decacia. Lyra is a very willowy figure. She's quite tall, and one might describe her as a bit lanky, and she's got very like sort of like sharp elbows and things like that. She's got a big pair of spectacles. Her hair is sort of that sort of like that tone that is blonde, but it's bordering on ginger. It's like just that slight
strawberry blonde.
A strawberry blonde, and in certain lights it looks quite like it looks a little bit like redder, but for the most part it kind of comes out as blonde. And it's a little frizzy. She's got quite curly hair. And Bast is a bit shorter. He has a mop of sort of messy brown hair, and he's got a larger frame, and he is covered head to toe in freckles. He's exceptionally freckly.
He's so cute.
Yeah.
Oh, he's adorable.
And whereas Lyra is quite pale, he's a little bit more tanned, so he's tanned and freckly. Whereas, so they make quite the pair, but they're joined at the hip, these two, and they kind of appear. And Lyra is her usual like excitable, chatty self, and Bast sort of gives you a soft smile and says virtually nothing. And Lyra sort of comes rushing into the room as these people leave, and she's just like, hello, are you busy?
Aren't you going with them? Down to the docks, right?
Well, was going to go with them, but I have some news for you, and I thought I would come and spend some time with you instead, my best friend. And she kind of sits on the bed.
Just kind of like squint in that playfully suspicious, like, what's going on?
You're not doing more essays and exam prep, are you?
What else am I going to do?
You truly are the least sociable person in all of the Decacia.
And that's why I'm also the highest scoring and the one with the most scholarships.
All right, well, don't rub it in all of our faces now, will you? And she kind of like smiles. And Bass is just like, she's got a point. And she goes, I have the news that you've been waiting for.
Frog Boy finally turned back.
No. He turned back away. Oh, I see. You're calling him. That's funny. And then she says, no, I'm talking about the mentorship.
There are, as in the one that we're all the mentorship as in the concept of, or are you talking about the new one that came through?
Estrella, I'm talking about the mentorship. The mentorship. The one that you want to apply for.
Well, yes, that one's a relatively new one, right? The one...
Right. It's only been running a couple of years.
Right.
And no one's actually completed it yet. And I'm saying that because Rosalie, who was on it, is now very much off of it.
Again? Didn't the same thing happen last year?
Yes. That's what I'm saying. And she had been, she was only here a couple of weeks ago visiting and saying how everything was going wonderfully and how wonderful it all is. And
when did this happen? When did she get back?
Today. She got back today. Everyone's being very hush-hush about it. It's all a scandal. She's very excited about this.
What? Did she say what happened? Oh, was the mentor awful?
To anyone. Well, I don't know much about Lord General Cassian. I can only go by my impressions of him based on the lack of completion from our students, but we sent him our best, aside from you, of course, and he has rejected them both. I'm hearing irreconcilable differences. I'm hearing, oh, she's not good enough. But I'm hearing, all I know is that Rosalie thought everything was going absolutely wonderful when she visited 2 weeks ago, but clearly not.
I mean, give her a couple of weeks. I'm sure she'll be telling everyone about how whatever happened wasn't her fault, but...
Well, what if it wasn't? I mean, he's said to be handsome, of course, but I don't know much about his temperament.
I'm not here for handsome. I'm here for effective.
Well, that I can maybe speak to. I mean, I've done a little digging on your behalf, and I hope you're grateful because it involved talking to my mother.
Oh. Was it worth it?
No, most certainly not. But she did tell me that she had spoken to and met Lord Commander Ulysses once or twice at some horrid
That's the
affair.
father, yes?
That's Cassian's father, yes.
Right.
And she told me that he was a disagreeable man. Difficult. And coming from my mother, that is quite something.
That's impressive. That's quite impressive. So do we think that this Cassian fellow is also horrible and disagreeable?
Well, you know what they say. Like father, like son, right?
Supposedly.
But I know nothing of him other than he's supposed to be very handsome. He looks a lot like his father, and based on the way that everyone just keeps coming back here with very little to show for it, he acts a lot like his father too. I say he probably threw some tantrum over something.
Typical of one of them. Well, that's a challenge.
Now, I am technically one of them on my mother's side. Thank you very much.
And your mother is,
She is nobility, sort of married into it. It kind of counts, Estrella.
Okay. But here's my...
Yes.
There we go. But here's my thing. This is becoming a challenge at this point.
Yes, and I know how you relish a challenge. So, what I'm saying is, to get to the point, get your application written now, because
And
the
don't get
application
booted.
cycles will no doubt open again.
And also don't get booted by the time.
Yes, the last thing that we need is for you to also end your mentorship early, Estrella.
I don't want to have to do a mentorship and a half. What if there is nothing wrong with either of them, and it is simply people looking to excuse their bad performance?
Well, it could be. And she kind of considers it, and she says, honestly, I don't know. All I know is my best friend wants that mentorship for whatever reason, despite Stuffy Lords being the part of it.
Well, they're stuffy, but they're effective, and their seal of approval on my resume will make for excellent job opportunities.
And Bast kind of has been sort of tennis balling between the two of you, as he often does.
Poor boy.
But with this kind of like, he's like engaged in the conversation. He's smiling and he's excited.
He's eating popcorn
for you. But he's kind of there, and he tempers Lyra a little bit. He's like, perhaps we should get back to the focus, which is a spot just opened up.
Right. Are they going to fill it with someone from Rosalie's year? Because that's what they should be doing.
Well, we don't know. Last time they kind of just waited until the next cycle, and I imagine they'll do the same. So they will open up the applications for the very, very beginning of our year, I think.
Right. Which means that it's time to start writing cover letters, dressing up resumes, getting letters of recommendation.
And they kind of like engage in this excitement with you. Like, they clearly had plans to go out. They are actually dressed up like they were going to go out, but they spend the evening, and you're engaged in this conversation. And how are you feeling? Because you're very aware that this is like a memory, but you're saying it. You're kind of like saying it as if you're part of that moment and you're part of that.
Yeah.
Memory. But
I think
you have an awareness that you didn't have before.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is I'm trying to lean into it as much as I can, because the implication that at least I remember from the hallway that I first woke up in is kind of lean into it, and whatever I'm kind of trusting that whatever I'm supposed to learn from this, I will get if I lean into it and I let the things that happened happen.
Mm-hmm. So are you saying the things that you remember saying, or are you saying anything differently?
I think, at least in this case, I'm saying a lot of the same things. I'm being a little bit more... I'm trying very hard.
A little bit more generous towards.
Yes, I'm trying to be a little bit more generous, and I don't think that's necessarily conscious. I think that's just because I know him now, and I have had the time to spend with him. I don't necessarily think I am intending to be as generous as I am. It's just how it's coming out.
And I think that voice that you heard before, sort of freezes the moment, and you can see, like, as you've been having this conversation again, you've walked into this room, there's these sort of threads that are kind of, you're still very aware that you're in a dream because it's not quite how you remember it, but there's these kind of threads that are sort of draped over the beds, and they're leading out into a different room, this sort of the hallway outside, and you hear this voice kind of, and they sort of ripple and vibrate again as this voice talks to you that you have kind of assumed is Clothis, and she says, My observations of this moment seem to differ somewhat to your memory of it, Estrella.
Are you watching this entire thing? What's
am,
different?
She pauses, and she says, I think you are allowing your hindsight to affect your view of the nobility that you are about to spend time with.
I likely am, but what else can I do with the knowledge that I have now? I would argue that it's almost impossible to completely separate what I know now from what I did back then.
When you had this moment before, you were more analytical with it. Now you seem to be more in touch with your feelings, your emotional side. Is that fair to say?
I suppose. I would argue maybe that it's more just that I have more knowledge, and what's the point of having knowledge if you can't use it?
You have an answer for everything, don't you, Estrella? And there's this sort of like hint of amusement in her voice.
That's my job.
And it's why I chose you. And this thread sort of ripples and sort of indicates the door behind.
If I say chose me for what, will you answer me, or will you simply jiggle the thread again?
There's silence.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. Is the moment still frozen, like, after I say that?
It is. It's still frozen. Yeah, it's frozen in time.
Okay. Then I'm going to kind of, like, look back up and be like, can you, unpause them?
I think that Estrella would know that she wants you to follow at this point.
Yeah, so she will go ahead and awkwardly to the very frozen best friend just be like, I'm gonna go. And then go follow that thread.
How do you feel seeing your friends again after quite some time? And remembering how excited they were for you and how much they were so keen to help.
It is very much a bittersweet memory, because I miss them very much. I obviously saw them a few months ago during our midterm whatever, but it's interesting having the two of them so excited for something that turned out the way that this turned out. And there's a little bit of, I kind of miss when things were simple.
Yeah, I can see that.
I kind of miss when all I had to worry about was a mentorship application and an exam next week, and whether or not I went to the warehouse party at the docks.
And how and maybe people would think badly of me for
it.
Yeah.
And now I'm running around saving the world.
Well, I mean, you're chasing a traitor and getting a kidnapped queen at this point. And you follow this thread, and the door is sort of like Lyra had kind of like it's sort of half swung shut behind them, but as you kind of like push it, it opens with ease, and you go to reach for the doorknob to kind of open it, and a hand just in this moment kind of comes into view and grabs the doorknob from behind you and sort of opens the door, and you hear Cassian's voice from just beside you, and he says, "This is your room," and he opens the door up for you, and you can see inside is your room at Akros at the colophon.
Except bare and not set up, I imagine.
Except bare and not set up. It is in its brand new state. Just it's your first day here, and if you kind of look around, everything from the Decacia is suddenly gone, and now you are stood in the corridor in the colophon of the Laos wing, staring into this room.
I think I first off jumped about a foot in the air because I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
Just like the recovery is graceful enough. But I do jump about a foot in the air because I was not expecting a sudden Cassian.
Yeah, and I think that you get, almost in response to that, you get like a murmured apology. It's just very, oh, sorry. And this, as you kind of look at him, this is the Cassian that you remember meeting at the very beginning of when you met him. He is awkward and stilted and stiff, and very, very formal. So he sort of stood up straight, and he's like within your space, but respectfully so. He's just sort of leaned to try to be a gentleman about it and open the door up for you. And he's now kind of like holding the door open and waiting expectantly.
And I think there's a moment where I just kind of stare at him for a second because I, again, wasn't expecting this. And surprise Cassian.
Surprise Cassian.
And it's strange because in my view, I was really just talking to him a few minutes ago.
But this Cassian you were not talking to. He is very different.
It's weird. We kind of went from this awkward, like, how's it going, like mild stilted banter, to this day one, I don't know you, kind of deal. And there's just this awkward, thanks.
I think the most unsettling thing, as he looks at you and you sort of respond to him, is when he's looking at you, there is no opinion in his eyes. It is abject neutrality. He isn't looking at you like you're his friend. He isn't looking at you like he's frustrated or it's annoying to have to be in your presence. He isn't looking at you with any kind of scope or lens. It is just it's weird.
It's just not exist.
Almost like sad. This Cassian doesn't know you. He doesn't know who you are. He's just met you, and it's like actually it's very disconcerting in a way that perhaps you wouldn't be expecting. And he kind of looks at you, and he gives this amused smile, slightly amused, awkward smile, and he's like, "You can go in."
Yeah. Are you okay?
Am I okay? Yes, I'm fine.
There's just like this weird squinty thing.
Like, yeah, he kind of looks at you, and then he's like, he's taken a bit off guard by that question, and he's like, "Is the room to your liking?"
Yeah, it's like I said before, it's huge. But of course you don't remember that because this is a dream. And
I think
this
that
poor boy thinks I'm insane.
I think that you are maybe expecting, because there was some sort of like in the previous conversation that you had with Bast and Lyra, there was moments where you kind of wanted to say more than just, oh, like, maybe it's not him that's the problem. Maybe it's like that people were not good students or whatever. Like you wanted to be almost a little bit defensive or a little bit like, oh no, like we've got it all wrong. But it was like something was stopping you. It was like something was like trying to keep you on a course of a conversation that made sense. And perhaps you would be expecting the same thing, and this is why you allow your thought and you attempt to say something slightly unfiltered that sounds absolutely
bonkers.
Like we were just having this conversation, and he kind of looks at you and he goes, we've not spoken on this at all. Deja vu moments, I get them too sometimes.
Are you getting one now?
No, I can't say I am. He still looks very confused. He's still holding this door. Like at this point, it's getting a bit awkward. Like he's like desperately trying to keep it from like again, and you're just standing there in the middle, and he's just like,
poor boy. I do actually step into the room.
Poor boy's arm relaxes. Oh my God. And he kind of like he kind of picks up your bag and sort of like pushes it a little bit further into the room.
And I kind of like, I'm okay. I don't need. Okay.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
I'm going to try something.
You saying that out loud?
Yes. Yes.
Oh boy.
In about 15 seconds, you're going to say something along the lines of, I have to go. My father hates it when I'm late. I have a meeting with him, right?
He... Oh my God, you're blowing this boy's mind. He like blinks for a moment and he was like,
Deja vu.
I'm running late. That's some strong deja vu. Yes. Well, yes, I do have to go. I have a meeting with father, and he is not fond of lateness. And I think that you can see now. At the time, you might have just put it down as like a sort of like almost like a sort of a slight attempt at humor, slight like maybe you would have put it down as like, I really just can't be bothered to just be here showing you around anymore, and like I'm gonna go, okay, like have fun, kind of almost like that attitude. But like now that you have a little bit more context, you can see that there is this like unsettling it's not quite like fear, but it's like a nervousness. There's a nervousness about him, especially when he talks about his father, that you understand it now. You have like that hindsight of what that means now, but at the time you had no idea, and would perhaps have brushed him off as a little bit like rude in some ways, of just like not wanting to be in your space anymore. But he kind of like is kind of like checking just was about to say like the wall sundial. I was like, what kind of timekeeping piece do they have here in Theros? So I'll probably like a sundial or something, and then I just
wall dial.
A wall dial. He is checking the sort of the time, and he's kind of like realizing, you know, time's are ticking. So he's obviously like been showing you around, and he's like a little bit late. A solar dial. Yes, I love that.
There we go.
Yeah. There we go. Let's call it a solar dial.
Perfect. Sold.
I like that better than clock. So, and I said clock. I did say clock then. But yeah, solar dial. So he checks it, and it does seem to indicate that he might be a little bit behind on time.
Okay. Well, go get your meeting. You can tell him I had trouble figuring out how to work the bathtub or something.
It's all right. There's no need. But thank you. And he goes to go, as you remember. And then he stops for a moment and he looks back at you. And he says, "Are you okay? You seem a little off."
Yeah, it's very new, is all.
I can imagine. Coming into a new space in a new city is it's
Strange.
probably a lot. So, anyway, I hope you enjoy your new room. I understand that they have dormitories at the Acacia, so it might be nice to have your own space at least.
Very new. Very new, very strange. Don't be late.
Yes.
Right.
And he then at that point, now that he's kind of checked into his satisfaction that everything is okay on your end, he sort of starts to walk his way down the corridor, fast paced, those familiar footfalls that you can remember hearing time and time again, sitting in this room working on something or reading or just sort of simply looking out the window and hearing him sort of come back and forth and return to his room and then leave again. And it's almost a nice sense of being settled and being home for a moment.
And I think as he's kind of getting toward the end of the hallway, I'm actually going to run back to the door and poke my head out. Cassian. I guess General Cassian.
He stops at you saying his name without the title for a moment. Not in a way that is like offended, but more surprised. And he sort of turns back. Cassian is fine, but go ahead.
And I kind of stop for a second, try and think how to word this, and then it's nice to meet you. With like a shy little Estrella smile.
Oh, it's nice to meet you too. And he kind of gives a little smile back, and it actually looks like a genuine smile. Let me know if there's anything I can do to make your stay more comfortable.
Yeah.
And then he starts to turn, and as he does, you can see like, obviously same as all the others, there's like this thread has been like sort of winding around the place, and it's this same sort of purple silvery sheen color, and you've been sort of like watching it. It is all around this place, and it seems to almost be like staking a claim or staking a territory, and it hasn't really bothered or like interfered with anything that you've seen or heard so far. But as he sort of turns quite quickly, and his foot brushes against it, and he almost sort of half trips slightly over it, and he kind of looks a little bit confused as to what he just tripped over, and then he kind of turns back and he almost fell right there, and then he straightens up and makes his way, and you can see where his boot touched this small different colored thread. It is this very deep red with almost sort of this like golden shine, and it sort of begins to sort of tied around where this area of thread was. It begins to circle around after him.
I kind of look up at the ceiling. Did that happen the first time?
You certainly didn't linger on the conversation quite so much the first time, did you?
I suppose not, but now it's different this time. We know each other now.
In a sense. Is that how you wish the conversation had gone?
It's how I would have it with the knowledge that I know now.
That's to be expected, I think.
I came in with a very solid idea of who I thought these people were. And it is not often that I am wrong. And it's worth noting that she doesn't actually say I am wrong, but she does imply it.
Mm-hmm. And I think the response you get is, you came into this place with a preconception, a hypothesis, an analysis of the situation based on evidence presented to you from sources outside. But sometimes, Estrella, you need to allow yourself to experience a situation fully, connect with it emotionally, not just logically, before you can truly understand how a picture is painted.
The different colored thread, is that part of the painting too?
It is. A different painting, but in some ways entwined. For now, though, Cassian is to deal with his own matters as you are to deal with yours. However, it is probably not lost on you that I have called you here for a reason, that I am speaking to you in this manner for a reason.
Have I missed something?
You haven't. And in some ways, you have. I have brought you together with your traveling party for a reason. And it is probably not lost on you that the amount that you have encountered them is something more than just coincidence.
Right. You mean Callista, Eva, Onyx, Kaliuka?
I do.
In the same way that Callista said that she saw us all together.
She did.
That was you too?
Yes.
If not for what happened in Setessa, if not for what's happening now, then why?
There is something far greater that threatens Theros than the mind of one mage or the treacherous actions of one soldier. Something that I will need help in addressing.
The gods asking for help is not a common occurrence.
It is not. And it often happens only when we are desperate.
What is this desperate circumstance?
I'll show you. Come with me. And you see the thread sort of ripple outwards and almost hug you. And you watch as this thread that was sort of coming from following Cassian disappears around the corner. And the thread that is pulling you away pulls you in the opposite direction to him.
Oh, you're killing me. There is a very long moment where she kind of looks at this red and gold thread that Cassian left. Because there is a very strong sense of curiosity and this want or even need to know where that thread goes, what kind of picture it's painting. And then after several moments, she will follow her own thread.
And you walk its path, and it leads you to a great door, one that you don't recognize, one that doesn't belong here in the colophon. And as you open it, you are presented with the realization that it is actually a window of some kind. And sort of there's this vast abyss, and this thread sort of floats through the sky, through the clouds, into a great beyond of stars and swirling chaotic magic. And she says, "Step out then. You are quite safe. Sparrows are meant to soar, are they not?"
Will he remember any of this conversation that we had?
Perhaps in another time, another version, but not this one. This is what it is. You cannot change the past, Estrella. You can only look to the future.
And she will give this assenting, yeah, it's fair, kind of nod, and step through the window.
And as you do, the whole area fills with this sort of swirling black, as if you were just suddenly stepping into a void. And you can feel the wind on your face. It does not feel like you are falling. It feels like you are flying. And we will end it there.
I didn't die.
It is it is the end of our first solo session of Therosian Odyssey, Hours of Uncertainty, Season 3. Estrella is well on her way to... Estrella lives.
Estrella lives.
The next episode is just Estrella going splat against a window or something. Thank you so much for joining us, those of you that did. I really, really appreciate all the support. I've been so excited to get back into this game and to play with all these players and to get back into this story.
I swear, like every other day, I've been like harassing Kat, like, "Hey, Theros."
Yeah, I have. Yeah, it's been a trial.
We did it though. We're back.
I feel like that gif of the old lady in Titanic going, "It's been 87 years." That's how I feel right now. Cool. So, we will be back in 2 weeks' time with our next solo session, and you will all get to be reacquainted with / learn a little bit more about Callista, our Triton priestess, our acolyte, our oracle, everyone's favorite oracle, well, that's bound to be a good one, isn't it? An oracle having a vision, a dream. It's got to be something cool. So thank you for joining us. Jen, if you have anything that you would like to plug or talk about, and reintroduce yourself and say where everyone can find you, let's go.
Hello, I am Jen. I have been your friendly local half-elven wizard, Estrella. I can be found on various social medias at Jenburb. Let me think. I spend most of my time either here or over on Girls Run These Worlds. Go check us out, girlsruntheseworlds.com. We're always accepting pitches for new games. I have 2 cats, one of which I'm going to bother. Say hello to Cass. Not Cassian, just Cass. And other than that, Cass, it's a different Cass. It's a different Cass. It just happens to be, but yeah, that's me. I just Twitter, Jenburb. Go forth.
Did you say Twitter gender?
Twitter, Jenburb.
Oh, Twitter, Jenburb.
Gender is fake.
I thought you just said Twitter, gender, and I was like, this is how you're putting yourself out in the world.
My gender is a question mark. Who knows?
Who knows what's going on there? This is my Twitter gender, Burb. All right. I am Kat. I am known on the interwebs as the Law Mistress. You can find me on socials at LawMistress93. You can find me at Twitter. I'm never calling it X. You can find me at Blue Sky. You can find me at Threads. I have been today's dungeon mistress or games mistress. I would love to give you an answer as to where Millie is. Millie is all I can tell you is Millie is not in this room. And
rioting, really absolutely unacceptable.
Absolutely unacceptable. I know. Yeah, so I have been today's facilitator, and yes, we'll be back in 2 weeks' time with another solo session. So that is coming up. I am taking so I have nothing planned in for the next week streaming wise. I am potentially taking a little bit of a sabbatical from it this week, but if the mood strikes me, I might end up playing a video game or doing some kind of co-working or something, because I do really kind of miss putting those streams out there, but for the time being I commit to nothing. So the next time you will see me is possibly for our next Therosian Odyssey session, which I'm very, very excited about. Other than
it's
that,
Callista time.
It's Callista time. Other than that, I'm working on a game with Hatchling Games. It is Greek mythology times sci-fi times mechs, and it is called Argo Naught. So it's Argo dash the number 0. Very, very excited about where we're going with that, and that's moving it along at an incredible pace. So looking forward to getting into that. That's all I have really to plug for now, because that is all I can remember to plug for now. But you will see me again, and you will see Jen again playing Estrella in a few weeks' time. Once I have, as I say, a few weeks' time, it's every 2 weeks. So some time away when the party are reunited and get to talk about this potential dream that they might have all had and shared together. Is there anyone that we can raid at the moment? I might raid. Is there anyone on your end?
Nothing on my end.
Nothing.
But also my Twitch circles are fairly small. I hang out with me, and I hang out with you, and I hang out with JTW.
I only have high rollers really that and I mean they have a lot of viewers right now, but
Yeah, I'll be streaming Dark Souls later, but not right now, so it's not.
not right now. That's fine. Let's. You know what? I'm going to raid this person. Some other heroes who are also playing Dungeons and Dragons.
We do love some heroes.
I believe that they might be doing they're on episode 88 of whatever they're doing.
Ooh.
So that's fun. Let's go see what they're doing. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us, everyone. We will be back again in 2 weeks' time. And the lovely Lulu will be with me. So thanks and cheerio.
Bye.